tailgate restoration going on here. This has come from, I believe it's a South African tailgate, one of my customers, and he's been over it and found some localised corrosion. Not uncommon this, but the rest of this thing is actually in very, very good order. Now, you need to kind of look at all the different types of tailgate that have been manufactured over the years. So this one's obviously very clearly an exposed handle, but not a flippy number plate unit. But it's also almost got the bottom, well, it has got the bottom skin is wrapped over the top skin, the foreskin. I think it's one of the later tailgates, but I don't know. Anyway, so we've got this piece down here. We've got some corrosion at the top here, corrosion over here, tripod is in the way, corrosion over here and corrosion down here, but the rest of this is not in bad order. Now I need to get the top piece off, which will be my first thing to do. Giles yesterday broke about half a dozen drill bits trying to get this off. It happens. Let me just turn it over, 1 second. I was laughing while he was breaking his drill bit, because between you and me, it's something I do as well frequently, taking these bits off, and I'll show you why. The bottom edge, for now, let's put my angle grinder underneath it so it supports it in a decent orientation. So all of this lip along here is in relatively good order. This piece here is just completely kind of rotted out, so I think I'm just going to cut off here, rebuild this section under here, drill these spot wells to take this section off and do it properly. There's a bit more rust over here where the actual shell of the tailgate is rotted out and the skin is kind of going with it. Now, is it enough damage to warrant a completely new skin? I don't think so. I think we can localise repair. Certainly I'll repair the frame. I'm not taking the whole skin off. I think I'm inclined to fix it as and where it is. Now all this area up here is all in really good shape on both sides. This is the bit that always rots out on the UK cars. I don't know where this tailgate came from. Yeah, I should start by taking this off, I think. Well, that was amusing. I decided to take all of these channels off the bottom, largely because there's an enormous amount of rust behind them. Now this one hasn't been cleaned. You can see there's quite a lot of dust and probably sand behind there. I'm not going to do a biological assessment of it. This one here, you can see there's very little paint on that panel. It's almost like a transparent black paint that went on there. You can see where the top coat is leaked down behind it, and this bottom edge, just nothing at all. And that's kind of matched really with what I'm looking at actually on the tailgate. Now these were huge spot welds, huge, considering they're just holding that on. The ones along the middle here, I reckon they were 8 to 10 mil. So a tiny little point on the outside, which is normally what I drill into, and I'd normally expect them to be 6 mil or something like that. Now, those bastards there, 8 to 10 mil, God knows why. Anyway, these ones here, much smaller, much tidier, and the ones at that end were much tidier. But these ones here, they were just monsters. That's a 10 mil hole there. Sorry, that's an 8 mil hole there. That was a 10 mil. And all I really do, when I'm kind of drilling, when I'm going from the outside, what I do is I kind of drill in until I can see a brown ring, which indicates that I've gone through the outer surface. And as soon as you pick that up, then you can start working around the hole. So you end up with a complete brown ring. I'm going to say it again. So the brown ring indicates the edges of the spot weld. And then of course then you can get your old wood chisel, which has got the handle broken off it, which you can just tap with a mallet. And just tap the pieces off. Right, that's done that. Now, next thing I need to do is to probably have a coffee after all that. All these bits can go straight back on again after a quick clean. Now, interestingly, this centre section, that piece was brazed on. Now, I don't think that's fairly standard. I think that's someone's just brazed a piece of metal there. Yeah. That will come off. And then I need to, I've got some old scrap tailgates. I may be able to find bits of this. I may just use flat steel, we'll see. I need to probably cut the skin back in those areas first, but like I say, first of all I'm going to sit down and have a cup of coffee. Cheers. Been along the bottom edge of this tailgate, you can see it's been painted a fair few times. So we've got the black, and it was a reproduction panel, I'm fairly sure, it's got black transport paint on it, and then it's got a white primer, then it's got a maybe even just a white top coat on top of the primer. If there was a coat of primer on top of the transport paint, it was very thin. Top coat, primer, top coat, primer. One of the top coats on here is still wet. So when I feel up here, it's horrific. So as I'm sanding it off, you can see one of these layers, probably the primer coat, the grey primer coat you can see on this line here, is just spreading around like it's wet still. Now, you can see here it's actually starting to bubble up under the heat of the, I'm using a zip wheel. It's just my opinion, but I generally find that this stuff now, you need to go back to bare metal, unfortunately, because what will happen is there's a danger that whatever paint goes on top of this will melt this outer surface and then react with the paint coat that's still soft underneath here. That's a little job for Giles to do there, isn't it? Anyway, I've been along the whole of the bottom edge. We've got a little bit of trouble there. Nothing particularly serious, a lot of trouble there. Tiny bit of trouble there and there and there. It's fairly common for these things to rot along the bottom edge. This one's in very, very good condition. All of this stuff up here is reasonably strong. I'm quite comfortable with it. I don't think there's any real issues there. Well, I wasn't expecting great things out of this area, and it has delivered. Other areas where the zip wheel was able to go through with relative ease. Some of the stuff might be pluggable, some of the stuff might end up being weldable. So basically all the way along this edge, right up until this point, which Giles started to peel back this edge, I didn't do this. It's all in fairly good order. Localised repair on the skin, localised repair on the actual frame itself. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is cutting chunks out. I have probably got the remains of a scrap tailgate somewhere, which I could probably use this bottom section from. I'm going to have a hunt around. But when you're doing this stuff, all I'm using here, I'm using one of these nasty bastards. It's great fun, works really well, but PPE is king. You really don't want one of those wires ejecting at high velocity and straight into the back of your eyeball. So there you go. And I wear the welder's apron just because I get fed up with digging lumps of wire out of my arms and legs and so forth. But yeah, it's all right actually. I think it will survive. It's more than savable, this thing. More than savable. It's just a shame we didn't catch it before this lip rotted out here. But that was the section that was brazed on, so it's probably an older repair that kind of, you know, has carried over. That there has rotted out, so I might end up just, I don't know what I'm going to do with this lip. As you can see there's rust caught underneath the lip. This is the lip of the skin, and there's the frame. You can see there, hopefully you can see there, in here. I can't use this finger because I've got no sense of feeling to it, and I keep giving people the bird, so let me do it this baby finger, pinky. So yeah, there's all rust trapped underneath that lip there, which is kind of what Giles started digging out here. The skin's hold there as well, you can see. You can see how the whatever rust is in there has started to eat through. Now, do we go for a whole skin on the bottom edge? Would it be a shame? Because I think the majority of it is okay, but I think what I'll do is I'll attempt to repair. If I can't repair, we'll replace the bottom edge of the skin. It's a funny day today. It's about 17 degrees, believe it or not. I think I'll start just by lifting this lip very, very gently along here, and I use a pry bar for that. I don't have to mess like that. Giles hasn't necessarily got the right tools here, sir. You haven't got the right tools. So something like that will be quite useful. Alternatively, that, which is a trim puller, but I have had degrees of success with that. We'll try it with the medium length pry bar. Then all I do is put it under there and lift like this, see? This is how easy it is. So much mud and dirt and dust and rust and crap underneath the edge of this lip. I'm actually inclined to take the whole skin off. You can see here the primer down here, that's lifted. All the primer on the inside of the skin, it's like transport paint is lifted. So, I mean, kind of like, I think a couple of English winters and this will be rotting through again. Right, Right, the long and short of this thing is this skin's coming off, definitely. I've spoken to the owner about it. I peeled it back a little bit and had a good old, oops, falling over here, gander inside. There's a reasonable amount of surface rust inside, but the rest of the frame is actually in really, really good order. Now, this tailgate, I believe, is one of the kind of the later panels that Land Rover make, because rather than it being pot riveted on this top edge, it's spot welded. Oh, goody. And of course, then it just means I just need to. There was a spot weld there. That one was a bastard. These two come out relatively easily, but it looks like there's a spot weld every other inch. Because I'm replacing this bottom skin, there's just too much damage to it. I'm just going to run a cutting disc along here and then deal with this top lip separately. You can see in here the rust that's starting to form where the transport paint is flaked off. So I think it's a sensible decision. I think for the sake of the cost of the skin, we can actually do this properly and get this tailgate saved. I think it's too nice just to lob some filler at it and let it rot out next year. Not that I'd do that anyway. There you go. He hastily adds. A while later, spider's nest. Yep. Yeah, this lip's come along. You can see how this is the part of the top. This the tailgate was sitting over the top of this. Sorry, the bottom section was sitting over the top of it. You can see how this is all starting to rot out, but the rest of it is actually in really good order. So I think that I just will go with this remains of spot welds and so forth along here, so I'm drilling them out. It's unusual, I think. I mean, I need to double check, but I've not seen the spot welded together like this before on the earlier ones. You can see the whole bloody thing is spot welded together. But now that's off, you can see, aside from the rot, surface rot along the top edge where the transport paint is just flaking off, there's a bit of wax in here. So someone has, you know, done their best to look after it, but they've just not been able to get into where the factory didn't bother to put any sort of real rust prevention. But then, you know, it's lasted over a decade, and I would have thought the average life expectancy of a car is a decade. So yeah, if it lasts over a decade, you're doing well, really, aren't you? I'm going to get in here with the needle scale and just clean all this surface rust up and paint it all before it all goes back together again. But yeah, that's done that. I'm quite pleased. There's enough structural integrity left in the tailgate for it to operate, and I can fix the frame now without worrying about the skin. Just do the job, shouldn't it? Right, this tailgate. So, don't quite know where I got to with the videoing, but what I've done here is I've welded in chunks of metal where there was holes. So now, overall, the structure of the thing is back and solid. There's a little bit of surface rust over here, which I've ground back. Now, I bought a new lower piece, which came from Froggett's. Easy on panels, very nice, very easy, one-handed, like a glove. What I really want to do is measure from here down to here, because I think this can go up a little bit further. I'll compare that with my dad's car, and then I shall adjust this bottom lip so that it goes up as high as it possibly will. You can see on either side it will go up, but there's something somewhere along this bottom edge that I've probably welded on that's caused the problem. Now, before I do that, before I actually go berserk with it, what I do want to do, before I fit this outer cover, I mean, I know it's only a big flat piece of steel, but it's the work done for me. It's all folded, blah, 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 blah. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to treat all of this, where the surface rust, I'm going to treat the surface rust, and then I'm going to paint this entire inside edge here and the inside of the skin there with, oh, whatever that is, Rust-Oleum. I shall paint the bottom edge along here and the inside edges of these trim pieces here, which again I'm going to treat the rust on, and I'll weld those back on. Okay, I've got these three pieces there, and they've all managed to recover enough that they can go back together again. And then once all that paint is on, then I can I can put the skin on. And this piece of work then is Danny McDunn face. It's been fairly straightforward. So, okay, you see me rip it all apart, you see me take the tailgate apart, and now you've kind of seen the aftermath. I need to drill this hole out here. This hole is where the number plate lights go. The wires come up through and they come out through the number plate lights. So I need to drill that out so the number plate lights wire can go in. But other than that, there's nothing particularly nasty about that. And I think once, if I turn this over, where I've got holes like this, I'm going to put these back on. I can pretty much line up exactly where it needs to go because I've got the pattern where the old hole was. So weld this back into place once it's all painted underneath. I'll just clean up the areas where I'm going to weld and then weld it in. A lot of paint up here really, because that's where these bits have rotted out. And then before the skin goes on, once this is back in place, and I can plug weld from the other side and tidy up these bits here, which you're not going to see, so I'm not too excited about getting it back to a showroom finish. I've had enormous problems with the paint on this thing though. I don't know what needs to be done. I suspect it's probably going to end up being some sort of a chemical bloody paint stripper. Needs to get this shit off, because I am going through flap discs and wheels, sort of cutting wheels, because as soon as it goes near that grey coat, as you can see here, it just melts and clogs the disc up. So in the end I ended up using a zip wheel to get the worst of the shit off, and then I was able to clean the steel up. It's probably about the worst bit there, but I think I'll be able to plug weld that once, like I say, this outer piece is on here. And that outer piece is more than serviceable. And I've got two little edge pieces, 1-ius and 2-ius. Goes over there, and these little fellas. Have I got that on the right way around? Yes, I have, sorry. I was being a bit of a buffoon then, because basically what happens is the rubber seal comes from the floor and then goes up and into that. And you've got an L section that goes on the end here. I'll have to ask the customer if he's still got these L sections, otherwise I'll just make some up. Yeah, it's a step forwards, isn't it? Okay, so painted the inside faces down there, painted the blind faces on here, and so forth. These are the weather strip bits, the lower tailgate seal that goes underneath. And really it's just a case of lining it up now with the original holes. Not difficult to do, is it? Because there's so many of them. So that kind of goes about there really. So all I've done really is taken the paint off where I want to weld. I've got some good old weld through zinc primer, which I'll just dress these areas with. I mean, this isn't a body colour, this is just paint that I happen to have, which I knew would be tough. So I'm just going to really just strap this zinc weld first of all. Put paint on here. That's this. I've got enough of this job. Thought I had another can of it somewhere, but evidently not. And this bottom edge down here, what I've had to do here, I've had to flap this back. Probably should have done it before I painted it, but again, zinc paint will go on in here. And then I'll probably end up putting some sealant in there as well before it all goes together. So something possibly, because this is not going to come off, not destined to come off again, I might use something like that one. Sealant and adhesive, internal and external use, or better still, radio's on, I know. I have got some other sealant around somewhere, proper body seal. So yeah, I'll seal the tailgate together, but let's get this welding done first of all, because you're just bimbling, Richard. You're bimbling around, not really actually fucking doing anything at all. Now, one thing I do want to do is plug that bastard in before I go, because I've just noticed that one is beside. That's going to be a bastard to flat back after, so I'm going to plug weld that one, put the welder's helper underneath it. back in the old days when I had decent welding gloves, I'd have just put my finger underneath it, but for some reason welding gloves aren't what they used to be. Right, so those welded on. I'll tell you one thing though, this Rust-Oleum did not like to burn. Oh yes. And I put it on there, what, 2 days ago. So it probably needs another 7 years or so to cure properly. But yeah, I'll just flap those back and it'll be ready on the underside then for paint. Now it's all a bit warm still at the moment, so I'm not going to bother doing much more with it, but as you can see, lots of zinc primer went down there. I'm not going to worry about that little bit there where it kind of, that's where it rotted out originally, and I do need to cut that hole through there, which is where the wiring goes for the number plate lights. I'm quite pleased with that. I'm going to sit and have a coffee now. Dunny McDunface. Right, okay, so the sealant I used was this stuff. I couldn't find the other stuff. This is the ultimate answer to sealing and fixing. Sealant and adhesive, internal and external use. Suitable for all metals, including lead, glass, mirrors, all woods, polystyrene, blah 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 blah. Ultimate seal. Make sure they're clean, blah 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 blah. Contains lots of nasty fucking shit, which I'm going to wash off my hands now. There you go. Right. So it's sealed right round the edges. Run a row of pop rivets along the top here, so 3 inches in from the edge and then 4 inches apart each one. Work in from the edges because middle ones end up being about 2 inches. It's not strictly speaking exactly original because the top section would have sat over the bottom of the bottom section, if you get my drift. And then on the reverse side, I just used a block of wood on the outside and tapped over the lip all the way around. Done. I'm happy enough with that. That'll do. It's good for another decade or so, isn't it? What do you reckon? Right, back to Giles now, and he can prep and paint this.